Children were used as guinea pigs in experiments. That's perhaps one of the most disturbing stories exposed by the scathing investigation into the infected blood scandal.
Doctors ignored the risks of children contracting HIV and hepatitis C at a specialist school where boys were treated for haemophilia. 122 pupils contracted the viruses. Only 30 are still with us.
Well, we have one of those children here with us right now, one of the survivors, Richard Warwick. He went to the school for 6 years, and there he was infected with hepatitis B and C and HIV, all three. And he joins us alongside Nancy Lambert, who lost her dad Stephen to hepatitis C when she was 19. He was ill all her life. And Des Collins, a lawyer who represents 1,500 victims and their families. But Richard,
welcome
I'd very
to
much
all.
like to talk to you first. When you look back and you replay in your memory, the video, as it were, of you and your little friends, some of them as young as 8, 9 years old. I think you were 11 when it started happening to you. When you see in your mind's eye those procedures of you being injected with what you now were with experiments, you were being treated as, somebody said, chimpanzees, guinea pigs. What's your overriding emotion?
Anger, sorrow, disbelief. The fact that we were put into cohorts and treated with knowingly dangerous blood products from very dubious sources, in the main from America.
And prisons and drug users and...
Prisoners, drug addicts, sex workers, and injected every other day for some instances up to a month, so that'd be 15 times. But what they didn't explain what they were doing. There was no consent given by our parents as to why they were changing treatments on such a regular basis and further increasing the risk of exposure to us at such a young age that should never have used those sort of products made from concentrated pooled plasma on kids.
The reason I asked you how you feel now when you look back was because, and I expected you to say anger, because anger is such a corrosive emotion to live with. It must be exhausting.
Absolutely. Truly exhausting. It drains your very being, just having to live with it and think about it. And especially, as you said earlier, remembering the faces of the kids that you grew up with. You know, I mean, I still remember them to this day. And it's so disheartening and sad. One of the reasons my wife and I came down specifically to hear Sir Brian's final evidence was to remember the boys that couldn't make it, to hear his final conclusions. And I think as a pact we decided we'd fight to the bitter end to do what's right for them and for their families.
Because only 1 in 4 survived.
That's right, yes, yeah. 122 went through Trelaw College and 80 died.
It's absolutely shocking. You were 11. You contracted from this contaminated plasma product, you contracted hepatitis and HIV.
Yes.
When were you told?
Well, I think we all knew about hepatitis B because we were walking around in groups of 5 or 6 with bright yellow eyes. There were no whistleblowers. No one seemed to raise any questions about why we were like that. And then non-A, non-B hepatitis came along, which was later renamed to hepatitis C, and then HIV. And in the very early days of being down at Trelaw's, we all had swollen lymph nodes and glands down your neck, which are an early sign of HIV. So we would be, you know, in our late teens at that time.
And in terms of the...
No, I was going to ask, so were you still at the college?
Yes.
And were you diagnosed at the college?
No, I was diagnosed in 1984.
After you'd left school?
After I'd left, but I was told in 1988.
What do you mean? You were diagnosed but not told?
Diagnosed but not told. 4 years between being diagnosed and medically diagnosed with HIV and being told...
And why were you not told?
No idea.
So a doctor...
It was actually my GP that told me, not my haematologist.
Good grief.
My
So
GP.
your GP knew that you were HIV positive, but for 4 years...
Withheld that information from me.
And at what age was this?
I would be 1988, so I'd be 17, 18.
What impact has this had on your own desire to have children of your own?
If only. My wife-to-be at the time, 1987-ish, something like that, we had an accident, so to speak.
So she became pregnant?
She became pregnant and was advised to have the child terminated.
And for what reason?
Because of the risk to the child of HIV. There was no treatment until 1991, when AZT came along.
No. It's just one personal catastrophe after the other, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
And Nancy, we can come to you now. Same question, really. When you look back at your childhood, your entire time of being aware of your father and loving your father, and he was always ill, he was always poorly.
He was.
What do you feel looking back? Do you feel anger as well?
There is anger there, there is anger, but you have to suppress it, I suppose, because there's nothing you can really do about it now, apart from we've fought, haven't we, as much as we can. We got the day yesterday, but we can't take back the pain, we can't stop the pain, so the anger stays. You've just got to try and overcome it the best you can.
But that anger must have been hugely compounded as time went by, because you all knew what had happened, either to your loved ones or, in Richard's case, to himself. You knew what had happened to you, and it was constantly denied, obfuscated. You were told you were imagining things. I mean, it was extraordinary, the way you were treated.
Yeah, and we had to... We kept it within the family as well. We didn't go out and tell everybody he had hepatitis C and this is what's going on. I used to have to go to school and... Where's your dad? We don't really see your dad. What's wrong with your dad? And you'd hide the stories, really. You'd keep it within and you just deal with it. Yeah, you just deal with it as best you could.
Who do you want held responsible?
There are people responsible. The people who decided to bring it into the country, the people that went against the warnings, the people that... The doctor that gave it to my dad, it's listed on the medical record. He's allergic to cryoprecipitate. Let's give him Lister Factor 8 for a tooth extraction. It wasn't life-threatening and he wasn't allergic to cryoprecipitate. No. It's there are people who were to blame for this. Des
Collins, these are just two of your 1,500 clients here. I would have thought most people now, based on what happened yesterday and what was revealed yesterday, would think that these are open and shut cases in terms of compensation, but it's not like that, is it?
No, it will never be like that. I mean, the promise of compensation, the issue of compensation has been there for a number of years now, and I've no great belief that this afternoon that the government will put forward a comprehensive package. They'll put forward a package, but it will be full of checks and balances and codicils. Yeah, every you know, so that when you actually get a lawyer to look at it, you think, no, it's not what we thought it was going to be.
This is what's happened with the Horizon compensation in some cases. We know that Alan Bates, for instance, the leading campaigner, has constantly rejected offers. So do you think that's going to happen
I think that's
in this case?
The suggestion is there's going to be a tariff business. So you take the global sum, divide it by the number of people and say, you all get the same. Well, life doesn't work like that. Some people lose more than others.
How much money, Richard, would compensate you for the experience you had, the infections you have lived with, the loss of a family, because that's what happened, wasn't it?
Yeah.
What price would you put on that?
I couldn't possibly put a price on the loss of
autonomy,
family life, pensions, earnings, salary, career, insurance. It goes on and on and on, and you can't put a price on it. I can't predict what my career would have been like and my future earnings and such like, but I can't put a price on a baby, the life of a child, the fact that my wife won't be able to hold a baby in her arms because she was told to terminate the child.
Well, then what about punishment, Richard? What about punishment and justice? I mean, if some of the people, the individuals, the human beings who treated you like animals are still with us today, and the case could be proven, would you like to see them do jail time?
The problem is a lot of the people that made those decisions back in the 70s and 80s are either very old or, in most cases, dead.
Yeah.
I mean, we all want to see people's feet held to the fire, and we all want to see accountability. it's just so difficult to see how that could be done.
Des Collins, Andy Burnham has called it a criminal cover-up.
Yeah.
Could there be prosecutions? Would you pursue some kind of legal action in that form?
There could be private prosecutions. It's more likely that there'll be a self-referral by one or two of the hospital trusts who are involved in it. They should now self-refer to the Crime Prosecution Service. In other words, this is what we did. Do you think we committed a crime? And that is important. It shouldn't really be for the individuals to bring private prosecutions,
finally,
which are difficult and expensive.
What amount? You say that they're going to take that large compensation package and then split it up on the basis of a tariff. What amount do you think Richard and Nancy would be due under that? It's going to be announced today.
It will vary between client and victim, but certainly they're all going to be substantial awards. They will vary from about 50,000 up to 3 million, whatever. It's going to be different.
But just to finish, will people like Nancy, who wasn't personally infected, but who lost a parent, will the children, will the orphans of those who died, will they automatically get compensation? Are you anticipating that?
The proposal so far is yes, they will. They will recover, but the extent to which they will recover and how the value on it is going to be difficult. But yes, they will.
Well, more power to your elbow. You've obviously got a mountain to climb.
Yeah,
we hope we get to the top as soon as you can.
Yeah,
Thank
you all for sharing your experience.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Trelawn's College, which is where Richard was infected, say they're devastated that some of our former pupils were so tragically affected and hope that the findings provide some solace for them and their families, adding that the school will now be taking the time to reflect on the report's wider recommendations.
Well, some of you watching this will be part of this story. And if you've been affected by anything that we've been talking about this morning or the wider issues, then there's advice and support available for you right now at itv.com/helplines.